the excuse, because it is an excuse, ultimately it is an excuse, is that I don't want to treat my child the way my parents did me. So I'm going to give them more freedom. A lot of grown folks our age who had strict parents, they weren't allowed to go to sleepovers. They weren't allowed to
go to the club.
This. They weren't allowed to do that. And in your mind, you're saying, I'm not going to let my kid do that. My kid's going to be my friend. Whatever my kid wants to do,
they can do it.
Support it.
Yeah.
There were a lot of things that we could not do. But for me, I saw what my parents were protecting me from, right? I was not allowed to go to sleepovers.
We were allowed sleepovers, but my parents had to know their parents. Like, they had to physically see, talk to, and come to the conclusion that this person was safe enough for my child to be around.
But even still,
it's still a gamble.
Yeah.
What is going on, everyone's? We here and we back with another episode of
Is My Point Valid?
Yes, indeed. We are in this thing with another episode, and y'all know how we get it started. We're going to go ahead and crank it up with What You Know Good. But before we do that, I am Brandon D. Stocker.
And I am Camille A. Stocker.
We just wanted to let y'all know who we were, just in case y'all was wondering. But this is My Point Valid, and we're going to go ahead and get into What You Know Good. What you got for him, baby?
All right. I don't have anything other than books. Nothing's been... Oh, I guess I do want to share. This past week was Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And so all week we had activities to do. I didn't realize I had that many books on him. First off, like, whoa. So I was able to create a week-long unit, and we read some really cool books. You can check out my post on Facebook if you like. But the girls had written poems. We went over 2 poems by Gwendolyn Brooks and Nikki Giovanni, and they wrote poems about Martin Luther King. And Gwendolyn Brooks did one with like how he was triumphant, and then Nikki Giovanni wrote one about the funeral. And so the girls wrote their own poems, and wow, I was impressed. Isabel wrote hers really quickly. Isabel is like a writer. She's going to go right to it. Ava is like, okay, I have to think about this. Yeah. I have to overthink, and then I'm going to get in my feelings, but I'm going to come through with it. And they did amazing. And I had them stand in front of our little fireplace and recite them. And you know what they say, from the mouth of babes. So that was really good. All right. The books I've read this week. The first one is Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And it is by Judy Blume. It's about a 12-year-old girl who's going through the motions of becoming a woman. I'm not even going to say a woman. Of how her body is changing. Like
puberty.
Puberty. That's the word. Going through puberty. It was okay. The way people talked about it, okay. But they are about to make it into a movie, so I was curious, and it's okay. So that's 3 stars. Next up, The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants by Anne Brashares. Now, this one is also a movie. Here's what I've noticed, that a lot of books have been turned into movies, and it's so interesting. It's interesting anyway. But in this sense, The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, I think the movie is better than the book. So this book is about 4 girls who share a pair of pants throughout the summer, and they each go through something to help them grow. They're 15 years old, so they have to grow. And I guess another puberty book, emotions, trying to find themselves. But they are each different sizes, and the jeans, they're these magical jeans, and they fit each and every one of them, right? You know, that's not realistic. I mean, it could be realistic, but it fits all of them. One is in Greece, one goes to Mexico, one goes to South Carolina to be with her dad, and then one stays home. So they've spent every summer together, and then this is the first summer where they're spending it apart. And so they're finding out more about themselves, on how they rely on themselves without each other. So that was an okay read. I give that 3 stars. Last book, Just Mercy, A Story of Justice and Redemption by Bryan Stevenson. I gave this book 5 stars. Now, this one was also a movie. And this is where, what's his name? Michael B. Jordan and Jamie Foxx played the characters in this movie. But the book goes more in depth about the prison system, really in Alabama and some places in Florida. It was some other places that they said too, but it was really about in Alabama and how they were putting people on death row who did not need to be on death row. It was like people with mental issues, people who did not do it. And so Bryan Stevenson and his nonprofit or his company were going in and trying to and helping people get off of death row. Like, he wasn't saying that they didn't. The people who did do it did it. You know, they did commit a crime.
They got too much time for the crime. Right.
Yeah. So they go in. They still do that work today. They go in and they get the sentence lowered. And then Walter McKinley. He was the one in the movie who Jamie Foxx played, who he got out, who did not do the crime, but he was in there innocently. But that book is 5 stars. Just reading it and grasping, and then also another part that was like grabbing at my heart was they had 13-year-olds being tried as adults, and like their brains versus our brains is completely different. They had put one 13-year-old in solitary confinement, and I think when he went in, he was reading on a 1st grade level. Then when Bryan Stevenson found him, he was reading on a 3rd grade level. So his brain was not developing because he was by himself, and
that's been known not to be healthy.
And so the people, you can only get like your hour outside, and so. Yeah, my brain just started going like, how can I help? How can how can you do more? Because there's so many injustices in the prison system, in the school system, with everything. And you look at everything that I read, and it's just like, I want to help. And man, it's how? Yeah. How do you help? How do you change that? But Just Mercy, A Story of Justice and Redemption by Bryan Stevenson. And that's 5 stars. And that's all I have for What You Know Good.
All right. Well, y'all know how we do. We keep it moving. And we're going to go ahead and jump into the topic for today, which is going to be
2 kinds of parents.
So, when I grew up, coming up in a military, not only a military, but a church background, my dad and my mother, they instilled certain values in me, like discipline, a bunch of different values. Respect, responsibility, all of these things. And what we're seeing today is, I feel like instead of parents being parents, we want to be our children's friend. So instead of giving them the instruction to know how to navigate out here in this world, we're just saying, oh, I want my kid to be who they are. And with that being said, children do not just come up with ideology on their own. Mm-hmm. More than likely, they're learning it all the time they're learning it from someone, whether it's you at home or it's a school or a church or wherever your kid is most at is where they're going to be influenced. So when you say, I want my kid to be who they are, you're saying, I don't want the responsibility of teaching my kid to be an adult or teaching them how to come up.
You don't want the responsibility of teaching them right from wrong.
Exactly.
Right? We say, I think sometimes, and that's because I read a lot, okay?
A whole lot.
So I think a lot of the excuse, because it is an excuse, ultimately it is an excuse, is that I don't want to treat my child the way my parents did me. So I'm going to give them more freedom you have I see visually on social media a lot of grown folks our age who had strict parents. You know, they weren't allowed to go to sleepovers. They weren't allowed to
go to the club. This.
They weren't allowed to do that. And so when you got old enough to do it, you rebelled because, and then in your mind, you're saying, I'm not going to let my kid do that. My kid's going to be my friend. Whatever my kid wants to do,
they can do it.
Support it.
Yeah.
And because they have to live that life, right? And so I think we see it as, because we always go more biblically and what we are following. Brandon talked about his childhood. I guess for my childhood, and I always think about that as well. There were a lot of things that we could not do.
Absolutely.
Like that we could not do. Now, I cannot speak for my siblings, but I can speak for me because I know how I was. I was that kid who, if my mom and daddy said something, I would follow the rule, right? I would really follow the rules. I was never a rebellious child. I'm not even a rebellious adult. Like if that law say, hey, don't do this, I'm gonna follow that, right? So that's who I've been. But I think a lot, like I said, a lot of people my age are like, you know, I'm gonna have my kids and I'm not gonna go through that. But for me, I saw what my parents were protecting me from, right? I was not allowed to go to sleepovers. I was not. It was like a time of knowing what time are you going to be back. What time? My parents,
we were allowed sleepovers, but my parents had to know their parents. Like they had to physically see, talk to, and come to the conclusion that this person was safe enough for my child to be around.
But even still,
it's still a gamble.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Everything is a gamble.
Everything.
But I know I wasn't allowed to go.
But you're a girl.
Yes.
So that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure your brothers was at sleepovers.
I don't know. Honestly, like I said, I don't know. They probably were.
I believe,
they did. Yeah. My brothers did things way differently, and then it was there's an age difference.
Absolutely,
there's an age difference between us. So I'm my older youngest brother. Does that make sense? He's 5 years older than I am.
It would be the youngest older brother.
That's what I said.
No, you said the oldest younger brother.
Oh,
it'll be the youngest older brother.
The brother before me is 5 years older than me. Oh. So that's when my brain goes to when he was in high school. I was still in middle school, right? So you get when he graduated, I was still a kiddo. Yeah. He was a grown man. I was a baby. I wasn't a baby. But anyway, so that's how my mind goes. So they probably were. I don't know. But I think that parents just want to protect, or how our parents were doing. They want to protect us.
And a lot of people would call it sheltering their children. But you have to shelter your child to a certain extent. It's a lot of stuff going on out here.
I got that a lot. You're sheltered. And I didn't see an issue.
How did you turn out though?
I think I turned out very well.
So people can say what they want to about discipline and structure, but the world has not gotten better.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So that means that parenting has not gotten better.
People just stopped parenting.
Exactly.
Do you think that parents what do you think is the most thing that parents okay? Like, what is something that you see parents do that you would be like, no, absolutely not?
Honestly?
Yes.
The whole gender thing?
Oh, I can't say that's different, but I wasn't talking about that.
But what was you talking about?
I was like, sleepovers, concerts, music.
No, these kids want to go to the club. They don't want to go to no doggone sleepovers.
I think kids still go do sleepovers.
I haven't heard about children going to sleepovers. I've heard about house parties. Well, maybe it turns into a sleepover.
At the girl's age, that's what you have to think about your children's age. Well, I've said anything. Okay, one thing, I'm going to answer the question. One thing that I would not let the girls go to is concerts. You have to be grown to, or if I'm with you, but if you're...
No concert?
Let's go to Frank and Beverly and Mays.
Together? No, I'm talking about, I mean, I don't, if it's like no, they ain't going to no concerts by themselves, nah. Not by themselves.
Go to Jesus.
We can, yeah. And then they still ain't going by themselves.
Oh.
So, yeah.
I guess like Kendrick Lamar or
you
like
would let them rappers. Go by themselves?
No.
Oh, that's what you're saying?
Yes.
I got you. I'm talking about, I thought you took a turn.
No, I don't see, I just, because it's too much. It's too much out there. And then the messages, I get on real whatchamacallit on what people be saying.
And children don't even understand what they be saying.
Yeah.
Like the other day, you remember, what was that song that came on, all that Drew Hill, with somebody sleeping in my bed. We were singing this stuff in middle school. We didn't know what we was talking about.
Okay, let's talk about that, because we were watching Unsung, and so when you start watching Unsung, you kind of keep going. It's on Tubi. You want to watch it? It's on Tubi.
It's right there.
We watched Drew Hill, and then we watched 702. We watched some other ones too, but I want to focus on Drew Hill, and I want to focus on 702 because 702 it wasn't even 702. Subway is the name of the group, and they had a song.
The Games We Play.
Written by Gerald Levert. So if you know who Gerald Levert is, and you know what type of music he did, I have to tell you, I remember, and mind you, I'm in my 30s, so I remember word for word the song, but I remember knowing the song. I remember the 702 song. What was the one when she's out the window, looking out the window when it's raining? What was that one?
I forget what that one is.
But I remember...
She was singing out the window.
I remember one day it was raining. I was at the window like, yes. So... So some of the things that I know, like people be like 90s R&B, a lot of the 90s R&B that came out, I was like 6 or 7, and I shouldn't have been listening to that.
We were some gyrators.
What are you talking about? I did not gyrate. What are you talking about? I said I would sing, okay?
So you wasn't dancing?
We ain't talking about middle school years.
What we talking about?
Okay. So because we're talking about parenting, right? So story time. This all goes together. This is a good conversation, you guys. But I was telling Brandon how in middle school, I was like dance queen when the school dances came around. Everybody would be around me, and I'd be, yeah. I wasn't doing that. But you have to think. I was like, whatever. But anyway, and I was telling him there were pictures, like, at one of the school dances, I think it was like our eighth grade dance. Somebody you remember them cameras you got to the disposable cameras.
I remember. And Kodaks.
Yeah. And somebody took pictures, and I was getting down. I was like, oh my gosh. And so you do things when you're not around your parents, when you know you're not supposed to do things. Now, I know I said I was not a rebellious child, but when it came to being at them parties, at the dances,
that was a different kind of influence.
That was different.
Yeah.
I was it, okay?
Yeah. So even though you had discipline, exactly. So just imagine someone who doesn't have no discipline.
Woo!
Man.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I was kind of on that too, but I didn't turn wild. So
I didn't turn wild.
I mean, wilder.
And because the point of that was why I came up to that point was in middle school, I would dance, right? I wasn't afraid to dance and whatever. High school came, I didn't go to that many dances, but I didn't dance. Then when I started, like when I was in my 20s, you go to a club now and then, but I always had my person with me. I always had my cousin with me, and she was always like going to make sure that I wasn't doing anything wild or I wasn't.
But y'all was doing the same thing.
No. we were there, but we weren't doing anything.
Oh.
No, you doing the same thing. No, we would go out, but it wasn't like we was in a club, whatever. But even if I went to a club, if I wasn't with her and I went with somebody else, there was always somebody there who was very like protective of me. So I've always been around people who are just, watching out. But yeah, I think that was just being not rebellious, but like, you have to grow, right? But in the sense, my mom and my daddy were never my friend. And it was never a thing of when I wanted to go out, my mama never said anything. It was, and I don't even think I had like a curfew. Like I'm talking about like when I was like 18, 19, because I was still at home. But I didn't like have a curfew. It was
But you knew there was a clock in your head that I needed to be at the house.
Sure.
Absolutely. Because I was like that too. It was no set time. It was like, matter of fact, it was. For a certain amount of time, it was the street lights.
Oh. The
street lights was, you be at the highest by the street lights.
I know everybody say that. I wasn't outside like that.
We was outside. We were we was playing. We was kids. We was out there, but military. So we was on a military base. Everybody knew each other.
Yeah, all my friends stayed on the other side.
That's right, yeah.
That was too far.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Do you feel like it's okay to let your child do as they feel?
No. Children need discipline. Another story time. Earlier today, we were going out and the girls had been outside and they were like, I told them to get their jackets. And the young one says, it's not even that cold outside.
Mm-hmm.
The older one is like, I got these little jackets. And man, I went off because first off, you going against what I'm telling you to do.
I'm a parent. I ain't your friend.
Second off, you going against what I'm telling you to do. I'm
the parent. I'm not your friend.
Third, you got the audacity to come stand by me and tell me that it's not that cold outside.
I'm the parent.
Okay.
I'm not your friend.
So, bam, that parenting moment came. This is what we not going to do, okay? When I tell you to do this, this is what you need to do. And they needed their stuff, right? So, that's the part of discipline that you need to. And when children need to shut up and...
Because kids don't know nothing.
No, they don't. And that's the part of parenting. You're supposed to teach them. And yeah, I'm a homeschool mom, sure. And I teach them all types of things. But I think one of the biggest things that we as parents have to teach our kids or children, don't call them kids, children, is right and wrong.
Absolutely. How to be a good person.
How to strive to be better than you were today, because we're not good people.
All right.
We're not. Your intentions may try to be well. Your intent may be good, but we're not, because we're going to mess up. We're going to make mistakes. And that's another thing that we as parents need to teach our children. And we'd be like, oh, it's okay, Jimmy. Another story time. The other week, I was telling our oldest, it's okay that you didn't get all 100 of them. So here's where her mind went. I'm gonna just do 20 of these suckers in this time frame.
It's not okay.
And it's not okay. So I was like, hold up.
If you lower the standards, then that's where the standards are gonna be. And then from there, it's like, all right, so story time. My grandmother used to have this big old jar of quarters. Big old jar of quarters. So over time, I would take a couple of quarters. Mm-hmm. So I didn't notice that I done took the whole jar of quarters because I'm only taking a little bit at a time. Mm-hmm. So the difference is not major, so I'm not noticing that. Mm-hmm. Same thing for the other scenario.
Mm-hmm. It just, you can't, you have to, you got to stay on them. And not on no mean stuff, but you have to stay on them. You also have to call them out when they are wrong.
Absolutely. Because if not, they won't know any better.
Right. Oh, because to go back to the jacket situation, I was like, y'all want to know how I know that y'all going to need your jacket? Because my mama told me I was going to need my jacket one day, and I ain't taking my jacket. And I was cold. She told me, and I ain't listen.
You don't know nothing. You're not smarter than me.
It's not not about being smart. It's just about, hey, let's listen. Let's just listen. Because even we have to grow each day as well. But their little minds, we have to teach them.
They need direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not about being their friend. It's about, hey, this is right and this is wrong. You see a lot of the gentle parenting and the whatever. Okay, I get it. But teach them right from wrong. Teach them right from wrong. Tell them, call them out. Say, hey, that's not right. That's not cool what you did. And then here's the part, because explain it. Explain it.
Yeah. Don't just give them solutions to the problem. Don't just tell them about the problem.
Explain it. This is why I'm telling you this. Or, you know what? This is not why we're doing this. Back to Ava and the math. So I had to get on it the other day and be, hey, no, you try your best at anything that's placed in front of you. You try your best. You don't do no mediocrity. I ain't mediocre, right? Okay, so you're not gonna be mediocre. You're gonna try. You're gonna try and get it together. That's the song. That's what it was.
Get it together. Yeah. Yeah. I don't really wanna stay. And I don't wanna. Oh, don't do it to him.
I did it to him. No, I'm just joking. But discipline. So I don't know if there are two kinds of parents. I don't know. I guess the parent is a friend and the parent who disciplines, but children need discipline.
A parent who parents and a parent who's your friend. Those are the two kinds of parents. A parent and a friend.
I'm a parent friend. No, I ain't my friend.
No. Because with being friends, there's a certain amount of acceptance that you want with your friends.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned with structure.
From your parents as well.
I'm more concerned with structure than being their friend. Yeah. Now, if you're properly teaching your children, then they'll become your friends anyway.
I think I have a friend in my mom.
But solely going into it to be your child's friend, you going to the club together and y'all partying, y'all doing all these things together, that's not cool. That's not good parenting. Allowing your children to be what they want to be, whatever they feel. My daddy or my mother did not allow me to do, and even biblically, you're not allowed to do everything that you feel. Mm-hmm. That's what's wrong with today. Yeah. We're doing everything we feel. We are more concerned with feelings than logic. We are more concerned with feelings than truth. We are more concerned with feelings than everything. It's all about how I feel, and I'm going to do this because this is what I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. And we void out a lot of...
with feeling with your kids. It's okay to feel like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not okay to feel like that, right? Sometimes it's okay to show your anger. It's not. You control you, right? And even in the Bible, it does tell you about controlling yourself and how anger and all of that. If
you allow your kids to explode when they're young, they're going to explode when they're older. And consequences come with that. So are we explaining the consequences that there are results to every situation that you put yourself in. So if you're teaching your kids certain things, are you teaching them the consequences of these things?
Oh man, my mind just came to something that my sister had sent me about a teacher. And basically he was saying that teachers do want to discipline children at school. And then you have parent-teacher conferences and you see that's why they act like that. Mm-hmm. Because of the parent.
And I can't correct a child who is learning things directly from their parent.
Right. It's hard.
We're not even on the same team. You come to school and you want to fight me because of what your child doing. Because you see yourself in your child, so you can't be so hypocritical to defend the adult. So you have to go in line with your child to make it seem like, oh, this is my child is right. When in fact, no, they're not. And you ain't either. Yeah. Both of y'all need to get y'all minds right. And that comes with discipline. So if the parent has no discipline, the child ain't going to have any either. So, in fact, there is 2 different kinds of parents.
Good one and the bad one.
Nah.
It's a good one and it's a bad one. But yeah, that makes sense. And I was like, she sent that. And I was like, that makes so much sense because your children pick up on what you do.
Absolutely. Or what you don't do.
Or what you don't do. But they do emulate you.
Mm-hmm.
They emulate you because...
And if you're not teaching them good, they're going to learn all the bad. And then they're going to go into the world and learn everything that the world is teaching them. And that's even more bad because the world just said we are not good people.
I have a question.
Question time.
Do you think children should be taught the Bible
in school or period?
Period.
Yeah, absolutely.
What age do you believe that is too young?
There's no such thing as too young to learn the Bible because a child's brain starts developing from the time they come out from the time that they're conceived. A child's brain is developing, so they're learning things within the womb. Mm-hmm. They're doing all different. They kick. They do all kinds of stuff in the womb, so they're learning. So by the time they come out, they ready to start processing information. Because they're looking in your face. They got their eyes open. They looking around. They following voices. Mm-hmm. So when they come out is the perfect time to start them on how to be a better person. Because we come out as a person, people are not good naturally. We are sinful people. And not to go biblical on you, but just being real, we are sinful people. The only good in this world is God. The only way to get closer to God is through that Bible. So we need to start teaching that immediately.
But then you'd have children who don't get that right,
mm-hmm.
who don't get it at all,
mm-hmm.
who don't know. But even still, and here was the thing, because I'm going to teach the Bible, and here's what I've learned from teaching the Bible. From right now, we are in I'm going to say it correctly.
Leviticus.
We're in Leviticus.
Say it how you usually say it.
Say it correctly. We're in Leviticus.
You can't even say it right because you're so used to saying
Leviticus. We're in Leviticus. There it goes. I still said it wrong.
Leviticus.
That's the book. And I've seen, as we are reading it, and I guess the type of parent that I am, we're going to read the Bible. We're going to get an understanding. We're going to read the Old Testament all the way to the New Testament. We're not just the New Testament church, but we are going to get the whole thing. And I've seen the conviction in my children. Does that make sense? Like when we pray, when they're understanding right now in Leviticus, God dog it. We did learning about the atonement of the burnt offerings, the sin offerings, the peace offerings, the guilt offerings. And Aaron right now is becoming, Moses' brother is becoming the high priest. And so he's done his burnt offering, and we're discussing how the burnt offerings are paying for your sin, are paying for your sins. And then we go back into the New Testament. Well, why don't we have to offer burnt offerings anymore? Or why did the Israelites have to? Because that was the original people, right? That was
another story for another time.
Who did it. But then we go into the New Testament. So why don't we have to offer up a young ram? Why don't we have to offer up a dove or a pigeon? Why don't we have to do that? And so for my children to say, well, Jesus died for us. This is why I think it's important, an important part for parenting. And I know a lot of people don't want to have any type of biblical, don't believe in God, don't want to touch that because it's not real. But for me, I do believe it is real. And I see the conviction in my children to know, okay, Jesus loves me. God did this. We're doing all of this. And to apply the Bible into their lives, to take the stories, if we talk about Daniel, if we talk about Nebuchadnezzar, if we talk about Moses.
Because a lot of that stuff still applies today. Right. You see it every day.
And apply it. So, yeah, I just think for me, parenting involves applying the word of God into their lives and for them to understand. I think ultimately for them to understand when we say right from wrong, well, in that book, he tells you what's right and what's wrong. And so you imply those stories or the words that have been written and you apply it in their life. If they did something, sometimes it is you remember when such and such did this? Well, what did he do in that moment? So I think you can make those teaching moments. You can even take regular books and, and read a chapter book because I talk about the Bible a lot right now. We're reading Pippi Longstocking. Pippi's, she's a lot, right? But they're enjoying it because you're like living vicariously through this little girl in a book because you know that you can't do that, right? You know that you're not going to allow people into your...
It takes your mind on an adventure.
Right. And so that's how I guess I parent. People parent differently. People teach right and wrong differently. And is that okay? Sure. But I still think you need to teach that right and wrong and just don't say, okay, here you go. You can do anything you want. And
it's not just teaching right and wrong. It's like you said before, you need to teach why it's right and wrong.
Yes. Examples. Give examples. Explain why.
And in those examples, let's be real.
Yes. I think I'm very real.
Let's be real and explain it to them so they understand. Break it down, because children, they need bite-sized pieces.
Yes. So
that's parenting. And giving your child information in bite-sized pieces.
And although you're giving it to them in bite-sized pieces, I'm going to go back to that jacket situation. Next week, I'm probably going to have the same conversation about the jacket.
Because they're children.
They're children. The week after that, I'm probably going to have to say the same thing. It's probably not going to click until they 18 years old and be like, Mommy told me I always need to take a jacket with me in the winter. I'm trying to tell you. Mommy told me I need to take a sweater with me in the spring. That's when it's going to click. So this thing of, they don't listen. It's not about children not listening. It's that their little brains, it's not processing. It processes in that minute once you fuss. But you got to go back to it. You got to keep going back to
repetition.
It over and over and over again. They are not grown people. Their brains are not developed like ours.
You can't teach a child any one thing once.
Right.
And expect them to grasp the concept.
Do it 3 times.
It's over and over. Even adults have to learn things over and over or to be able to consciously remember those things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so...
Absolutely. My brain doesn't work like that. You show me something, and by the 3rd time, I have it. And that means if I'm paying attention and I really got it, my brain.
It just depends on the interest for me.
Oh, for the interest for you.
Yeah.
Oh no, you can show me. If you show me, and I, like I said, I pay attention. Sometimes I don't be paying attention.
Yeah.
If I don't pay attention, but if I pay attention, but children are not paying attention, right? Children are not paying attention. That's like learning their multiplication facts, right?
And the places that they're at the most is where they're most influenced. So if they're not around you the most, then you have to try that much harder to cover that influence, because I'm telling you, they're learning something from somewhere. They're a sponge. They're absorbing information from someone somewhere. If it's not you, then you might see that as a problem. You might want to handle that.
Some people may not see it as a problem. Some people are like, hey, Billy, go do what you do.
We need responsible parents out here in this world that are taking care of their children and taking the responsibility to teach their own children and not let the world. Yes, it is hard. Everything hard. Name one thing that's not hard in this world.
Reading.
It's not. Oh yeah, it's hard.
It's not hard.
Because you got some illiterate people.
It's not hard.
It's hard for them.
But parenting is hard. So I don't ever want to take that away from a parent. And sometimes you do want to give up. I want to give up sometimes. And my children are with me 2-4-7. Okay?
25, 8.
All the time. I even teach them. And the most, frustrating thing is what I realized is back to that brain processing with math. I know how to do it. But then I think back to the times when my mama was fussing at me because, Camille, just count the money.
Yeah.
I wasn't getting it right. I wasn't getting it right because I didn't want to.
And the more your child doesn't understand.
I didn't want to, right?
Brain shut down.
So it wasn't yelling, but it was just like, man, you should know this, right? It's like, okay, Camille, take a step back. Do this.
Take a couple breaths.
Because sometimes your brain not, and then the next day you come and be like, oh, I know how to do it. It's cool. So parenting is hard. Parenting is work. Just like you said, anything at all, it takes work. But in that, don't try and be your kid's friend. Be their parent.
Show them the way.
Be their parent.
Lead them. Guide
be their
them.
parent. Be the person that they are able to lean on. And I'm pretty sure they'll come to you if you just do what you got to do.
Yeah, I think so. I think those were very valid points.
I don't know. We had a whole lot of story times.
We had a whole lot of story time. Yeah.
I done went into when I was doing in middle school.
We went into the Bible. We done touched a little bit of everything on this. On this parenting touches everything though.
So, what type of parent are you? If you have grown children, do you think that you discipline too hard? Did you discipline too soft?
Did your children rebel against you? Because you was too hard on them. I did to a certain extent.
I was a good child.
I did to my daddy to a certain extent because he was hard. That man was in the military. He had us doing push-ups and all kind of crazy stuff. But I love that man now. And I appreciate what he did. I did not. I wanted to beat his brains out of his head.
Wow, you didn't love him then.
I loved him, but I didn't like him.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's the...
Yeah. I can go... We're going to leave that alone.
I was just you talking about...
But,
I love him there. Whoa.
I loved him.
But
I would have loved to hit him across his head with something.
Yeah, I was a good child. I'm a good adult. Y'all, there's no such thing as good. You strive to be, you just work on yourself, but you ain't never gonna be good. And I hope you understand that with children as well.
Absolutely. It's even more true with them.
Just be on them and hold them responsible. Hold them responsible for their actions.
Absolutely.
Hold them responsible because there's too many situations happening out here in the world where things are getting out of hand. And you probably need to say something beforehand, but you ain't say nothing. And so then they get in trouble.
Now, little Johnny, you telling everybody how good of a kid Johnny was, and you don't know what Johnny done did.
But even still, you remember what I said the other day? We're not good, so we never know
what people are capable of.
Right, exactly. Right.
No, John, I've known him for 20 years. He wouldn't do that.
Shoot, you talking about little Johnny. It could be, I'm not saying for me, like me, I can sit here and say, I didn't rebel. Tomorrow I might
become that person.
Right. You don't know. Right. Yeah. God willing, I do not become that person. But yeah, you don't know because we're not good, y'all. But just work on this parenting thing.
Yeah. Be the best that you can be. Don't place the blame on nobody. Look at the person in the mirror and ask yourself, what can I do to better this situation?
Yeah.
But with that being said, we're going to keep it on and moving with on this day in Black history. So today is January the 23rd. On January the 23rd in 1849, Elizabeth Blackwell graduated from Geneva Medical College. She was the first Black woman to receive a medical degree in the United States. Shout out to her. And that was brought to you by the Library of Congress. Shout out to them too. So we're going to go get up out of here. But before we do, thank you to everybody who continues to show us love. If you are here, first time, second time, it doesn't matter. Continue to come back because we have these hot topics for y'all. We coming hot and fresh every Monday. So y'all continue to rock with us. And like always, it's love, peace, and soul. Bye. Like Soul Train, baby. Chill.